The Marine base was alive with noise. Boots stomping, laughter echoing through the mess hall. The kind of day where new recruits thought they ruled the world. Then she walked in. Nancy, silver white hair tied back, blue t-shirt tucked into camo trousers, calm as still water. "Too beautiful," they whispered. "No way she belongs here." One recruit, a young loud, smirked. "You lost, sweetheart?" "This isn't a modeling agency." Nancy looked at him once, just once, and said quietly, "And this isn't a daycare, son." His buddies erupted in laughter. Embarrassed, his face burned red. He grabbed her shirt, yanked it hard. Fabric tore, the sound sharp as a shot. Laughter froze midair. A black tattoo marked her chest, a skull with a dagger driven through it. The laughter started again. "Whoa, careful, boys. She bites," she said. "It's a military-issued tattoo." He scoffed. "Yeah? Then what's your rank?" She said 2 words. "Black Reaper." The laughter died, because that name wasn't decoration. It was a ghost story every Marine was warned about. The only female SEAL commander to survive 37 missions. And she just walked into their base. If you want to know who she really is, and what happened next, make sure you hit subscribe, like this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you think we should never judge a book by its cover, comment "Never Judge." The Marine base was alive with noise. Boots hammering against the sun-baked concrete, the smell of gun oil and chow grease clashing in the air. It was one of those rare, easy afternoons where recruits could breathe, joke, and believe they were already soldiers. In the middle of it all, someone new walked across the courtyard. Nancy Hale, silver white hair tied behind her neck, light blue t-shirt tucked neatly into green camo trousers. She wasn't loud. She didn't try to be noticed, but still. Every head turned. A few Marines at the picnic tables exchanged looks and smirks. "Damn, who let a model on base?" "Probably a clerk or something." "She's too pretty for this place, bro. She'll quit after the first 6 a.m. drill." Nancy ignored the whispers as she carried a sealed folder across the yard. Her steps were even, calm, not forced confidence, just the kind that didn't need to be proven. She passed a group of young recruits near the mess hall doors. One of them, tall, broad, loud, leaned against the frame, pretending to stretch. "You lost, sweetheart?" he called out. "This ain't a modeling agency." Nancy stopped. Just for a second. She didn't even look at him. Not fully, just tilted her head enough to make him visible in her periphery. "This isn't a daycare either," she said softly, voice steady. Laughter exploded around him. Even his own friends laughed. The recruit's grin froze. His pride burned under the noise. He pushed off the door and walked up to her. "You got a smart mouth for a visitor." "I'm not a visitor." "Yeah?" he smirked. "Then what are you doing here, sweetheart?" Nancy's tone didn't change. "Paperwork. You wouldn't understand. It involves reading." The laughter hit harder this time, and now the recruit's face turned red. The others leaned forward, egging him on. He stepped closer. Too close. The air shifted. "Don't get smart with me," he said, jaw tightening. Nancy didn't move. Her eyes flicked down to his name tag once, memorizing it, then calm as ever. "You should walk away, Corporal." He grabbed her by the front of her t-shirt and shook her once, hard. The sound of tearing fabric cut through the courtyard like a gunshot. The laughter stopped for half a second, then came roaring back. Half her shirt hung loose now, and on her right chest, ink caught the sunlight. A skull, clean black, a dagger driven straight through its center. The blade's tip bled into the bone. No color, just sharp precision. "Whoa!" one recruit shouted. "Looks like we got a killer." "Careful, boys, she bites," another said, laughing. Even the one who tore her shirt smiled cruelly. "Cute tattoo. Real tough." Nancy didn't answer. She just fixed the torn seam enough to cover herself, expression unchanged. Then she looked him dead in the eye. "It's not cute," she said quietly. "It's military issue." He barked out a laugh. "Bullshit. That thing looks like something from a biker gang. You saying you're military?" She nodded once. "Oh yeah. Then what's your rank, princess?" Nancy paused, watching him, and then said 2 words. Black Reaper. The laughter died immediately. Not faded, died, like someone cut the power. The name hit the air heavy. You could hear the sound of distant boots stop mid-step. Even the kitchen clatter in the mess hall went silent, because every Marine, even the rookies who had heard that name, it wasn't a rank, not really. It was a ghost story. The call sign of a Tier 1 female SEAL commander who had vanished after 37 confirmed missions, all off record. The kind of missions that never made it to paperwork because no one was supposed to survive them. The recruit dropped his hand from her shirt. "You're lying," he said, voice suddenly smaller. Nancy didn't flinch. "You can check with your general. He's expecting me." She turned and started walking toward the command building. Her torn shirt fluttered slightly in the wind. The group stayed frozen for a moment before the laughter tried to restart. Weak, nervous, hollow. "Yeah, right," one of them muttered. "No woman's ever been a Black Reaper." Another nudged him. "Then how the hell did she know that name?" Nancy walked through the base gates like someone who'd done it 1,000 times before. The MPs didn't even stop her. They just nodded her through. Inside, the temperature dropped. The fluorescent hallway buzzed faintly, walls lined with classified unit photos. SEAL teams, combat groups, names blacked out with thick ink. At the far end of the hall stood a steel door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Nancy swiped a faded security card. The lock beeped green. The door opened, and inside, the noise of the base seemed to vanish. Behind a large wooden desk sat General Briggs, his hair gray, his eyes like weathered steel. He looked up, paused, and for a second, just one, the years melted from his expression. "You're supposed to be dead," he said. Nancy set the file on his desk. "You know I don't die easy." He opened it slowly, eyes widening as he saw the seal on the first page, a black trident over a dagger mark. "My God," he whispered. "They told us the Reaper unit was wiped out." She looked him dead in the eye. "They were. I'm here because you need help training the next generation before they end up like the last." Outside, through the tinted window, the same group of recruits loitered near the courtyard, still arguing. One of them, the one who'd grabbed her, noticed the silhouette of the general standing straight at attention, hand raised in a salute. And the woman he'd laughed at, she returned it. Then the blinds closed. No one spoke for a long time. Then one recruit muttered under his breath, "What the hell just happened?" The sergeant beside him answered quietly, "You just insulted the ghost every SEAL still prays to meet." The recruit's face paled. "That was her?" The sergeant nodded. "Black Reaper doesn't exist on paper, son. She's not supposed to. But if you saw that trident with a dagger," he exhaled sharply, "that means she's still active." The recruit looked back at the command building, heart pounding. Nancy's voice still echoed in his mind. Calm, effortless, dangerous. "You should walk away, Corporal." He suddenly realized she hadn't said that as a warning. She'd said it as advice. If you think we should never judge a book by its cover, comment "never judge" below. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room isn't weak. They're just waiting for you to finish laughing. The gossip didn't take an hour to spread. By evening, half the base had heard it. A woman with silver white hair, a tattoo on her chest, and a call sign nobody dared to say out loud. Black Reaper. The name moved through the barracks like smoke, whispered, stretched, and reshaped by mouths that didn't understand what it meant. In the mess hall, 3 recruits sat huddled at the corner table, the same ones who had laughed. Their trays were untouched. Even the food seemed to lose its warmth. "Bro, you saw the general salute her. You think he was just, I don't know, testing us?" "Testing you," another muttered. "She didn't even blink when you grabbed her." "Who does that?" "She's not military," the third said firmly, trying to sound convinced. "No one looks like that and just walks in here. Probably some contractor or shrink or..." "Contractors don't make generals salute, man." The sound of boots echoed nearby. They froze. Sergeant Duke, 6'3", built like a tank, the kind of man who could make air feel heavier just by walking through it, passed by their table. His eyes were locked on them. "Corporal," he said coldly, staring at the one who had started it all, "Command wants you in intel. Now." The other shifted, whispering as he stood up, nerves crawling under his skin. When he entered the intel office, the lights were dim, the air cold. On the desk, an open file waited. His file. And beside it, another one, older, stamped with black ink so thick the seal had bled through the paper. The general was there, hands behind his back. "So," Briggs said, "you've met Commander Hale." The recruit blinked. "Commander?" Briggs looked up slowly. "You really didn't know who you were mocking, did you, son?" He turned the file around. The words hit like a punch. Nancy Hale, Special Operations Command. Tier 1, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Call sign, Black Reaper. Confirmed operational, 37 missions, 0 capture, 0 failure. Status, classified restricted access, level Omega. The recruit swallowed hard. "Sir, I didn't know." "You didn't have to know," the general cut in. "You just had to think before you acted." He closed the file with a slow motion that made the silence heavier. "She's here because I asked for her. The Marine Corps needs help training your generation, the kind that thinks confidence is louder than competence." The recruit's face burned, shame heavy in his throat. "Sir, permission to—" "Denied," Briggs said. "You don't get to apologize yet. You'll earn that privilege when she lets you." The next morning, the courtyard buzzed with tension. Recruits lined up for PT, the usual chatter gone. The sun was brutal, bouncing off the asphalt. Nancy stood beside Sergeant Duke, clipboard in hand, hair tied tight this time, her torn shirt replaced by standard marine green. Her tattoo was hidden beneath the fabric, but everyone knew it was there. "Morning," she said softly. "Let's see what you've got." The recruits exchanged glances. No one wanted to meet her eyes. She watched them for a moment before setting the clipboard aside. "You think training is about muscle?" she said, walking slowly down the line. "About who shouts the loudest?" Her boots clicked softly. "It's about who listens, who breathes when others panic, who moves when it's chaos. You want to serve your country? Start by serving discipline." The recruit from yesterday stood in line, jaw clenched, unable to look at her. When she stopped in front of him, she didn't raise her voice. "You like to test people?" she asked. He hesitated. "No, ma'am." She tilted her head. "That's a shame. I was hoping you'd test me again. I could use a warm-up." A ripple of restrained laughter passed through the ranks, half fear, half awe. Nancy didn't smile. She just said, "Drop and give me 50. Then teach your friends respect by making them join you." They dropped instantly. Her tone never changed. Calm, controlled, surgical. Each word felt like a scalpel. When they finished, she said, "Good. Now remember this. Strength without humility is a weapon pointed inward." The group nodded silently, sweat dripping onto the concrete. She turned to walk back toward the command building, but before she disappeared inside, one recruit whispered, "What's the tattoo mean, ma'am?" She stopped mid-step. For a second, the wind itself seemed to pause. Then she turned her head slightly, enough for her silver hair to catch the sunlight. "It's not a symbol," she said. "It's a memory." And then she walked away. Later that day, deep in the restricted section of base archives, Sergeant Duke opened her classified file again. The general was there too, silent, watching. 37 missions, Duke murmured. "That can't be right." "It's correct," Briggs said. "She's the only one to come back." Briggs nodded. "Every single op went black. None of it's on record. Not for the Navy, not for Congress. Only the Reaper knows the real count." Duke exhaled, closing the file. "And you brought her here to train recruits? To make sure we don't lose another generation of fools who think war is a game." On the other side of the door, the young recruits were still whispering about her. "She's not human, man. You saw how Duke stood next to her, like he was the student. Maybe she's CIA, or worse." "No," said the one who'd insulted her the day before. "She's something else. You ever see someone who doesn't need to prove anything? That's her." He turned toward the command building, where Nancy stood at the window, arms crossed, watching them train. And for a moment, he could swear she was smiling. Not proud, not smug, just tired. The kind of smile that comes from carrying ghosts no one else could see. That night, the base lights dimmed to amber. The sound of engines faded, leaving only the hum of generators and the ocean wind against the perimeter fence. Nancy sat alone on a bench near the flight line, the glow from the floodlights painting her skin silver. She rolled up her sleeve slightly and looked at her tattoo, the skull and dagger. Her finger traced the number beneath it. 37. She whispered, "For you." Behind her, the sound of footsteps approached. Slow, deliberate. She didn't turn. "General," she said softly. Briggs stepped beside her, holding a small envelope. "Intel came in an hour ago. You're not just here to train anymore." Nancy looked up, calm but alert. "Go on." He handed her the envelope. "We got chatter from the east. Someone's been asking about a ghost named Black Reaper." Nancy took the file, her expression unreadable. "Then I guess it's time they found out she's not a ghost." The general nodded. "You sure you're ready for this?" She smiled faintly. "I was born ready, sir. But they weren't. If you think we should never judge a book by its cover, comment never judge. Because sometimes the quiet one everyone mocks is the only one left standing when the real war starts." By dawn, the base was awake before the sun. Helicopters cut through the orange horizon. Engines roared. Commands echoed. Something had changed overnight. Everyone could feel it. Nancy Hale was no longer the subject of gossip. She was the quiet center of a storm no one could see. She walked across the training yard, calm as ever, every step measured, boots hitting concrete in rhythm with the hum of distant rotors. Recruits turned to look, then turned away fast. Even the ones who mocked her the day before now stood straighter when she passed. She paused by the flagpole, adjusting her glove, eyes lifting toward the command tower. Through the glass, she could see General Briggs watching. He nodded once. She gave the faintest tilt of her head. Acknowledgement, not obedience. The rumor mill had evolved overnight into something closer to legend. "Black Reaper," they whispered. "They say she led the extraction at Sargon." "No way, that op was blacklisted." "Exactly, she's the reason it's classified." Nobody spoke her name, only her call sign. At Oro 900, she entered the command briefing room. Inside, it was different now. Officers stood when she walked in. Not out of protocol, out of respect. Briggs was already there. Maps spread across the table, red lines connecting coordinates across the Middle East. A younger intelligence officer looked up, startled by her presence. "Commander Hale," Briggs said, his tone clipped but respectful. "Sit." Nancy folded her arms instead. "You said we had chatter. What's the source?" He gestured to the map. 2 days ago, intercepted transmissions from an old cell we thought was gone. They mentioned a name that shouldn't exist anymore. Operation 37. The room fell silent. Even the air conditioning hum seemed to stop. Nancy's eyes narrowed. "They have our file?" "Not the file," Briggs said. "Just the stories. The kind that gets soldiers killed when people start chasing ghosts." The young intel officer leaned forward. "Ma'am, with respect, what was Operation 37? Nancy didn't answer. For a long moment, she just stared at the map. The light caught her silver hair. Cold steel against warmer tones. "Operation 37, she finally said quietly, "wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't on paper, wasn't in command logs. It was the mission that never existed. We were sent in to eliminate a cell manufacturing untraceable chemical payloads. We succeeded. But the cost..." She stopped. Briggs finished for her. "Every operator but one. She came back carrying the intel. And the ghosts." The recruit's name from before, Cole, was in the hallway, standing outside the briefing door, overhearing everything. His throat tightened. The same woman he'd grabbed by the shirt was now being discussed like a legend. Nancy took a deep breath. "So what's the new problem?" Briggs turned a file around. "We've confirmed a strike team planning to hit a convoy tomorrow night. They're using old Reaper tactics, your team's exact blueprint." Nancy's gaze hardened. "Then it's someone who trained under us, or someone who studied us." Briggs nodded. "That's why you're not here as a guest anymore. You're leading this one." By afternoon, the base transformed into mission readiness. Vehicles lined up, ammunition distributed. The sound of metal on metal and boots on asphalt filled the air. Nancy oversaw everything, moving between groups like a ghost in uniform. Every command she gave was calm, specific, never wasted. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. "Remember," she told the recruits, "your weapon isn't the rifle. It's your mind. Use it before you pull anything else." The men nodded, though some couldn't help but glance toward the faint outline of her tattoo pressing against her shirt fabric when the wind hit. That symbol, the skull and dagger, was no longer a joke. It was a warning. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Nancy sat on the edge of the barracks roof, boots dangling, cigarette burning between her fingers. The air smelled like fuel and rain. "Mind if I sit?" She turned. It was Cole, the recruit who had mocked her. He looked uneasy, carrying 2 coffee mugs. He held one out to her. "Apology coffee," he said, trying a small smile. She took it, nodded once. No emotion in her eyes. "You don't owe me coffee." "I do," he said quietly. "I crossed a line. Didn't know who you were." She took a slow sip. "That's the point. You're not supposed to know who people are before you respect them." He nodded, embarrassed. "They said you lost your whole team, ma'am. 37 missions." She looked out toward the fading light. "I didn't lose them," she said softly. "They completed their part. I'm just the one who came back to write the report." Cole didn't know how to respond. The silence between them stretched. Then Nancy said, "You want to make it up to me?" He nodded quickly. "Then pay attention tomorrow. And don't hesitate. Hesitation gets people killed." By midnight, alarms jolted the base awake. Red lights flashed across the compound. Sirens blared. "Unidentified movement detected along East Ridge." Nancy was already up before the PA finished the sentence. She grabbed her gear, strapped on her sidearm, and sprinted toward the command post. Briggs was there, headset on. "They're testing us," he said. "Small arms fire near checkpoint 2. Looks like a probe, not a full assault." Nancy checked the feed. Static. Then one camera flickered to life. 4 figures moving low, fast, wearing no insignia. She zoomed in. "Formation pattern's ours," she muttered. "What?" Briggs asked. "They're copying us," she said. "Reaper-style infiltration, 5-second roll advance, low light." Briggs looked at her. "Then who?" Before he could finish, a gunshot cracked through the monitor feed. One of the outer posts went dark. Nancy grabbed her rifle. "They're not testing, they're warning." Outside, the air was thick with the smell of sand and adrenaline. Floodlights cut across the perimeter as Marines scrambled into defensive positions. Cole was among them, gripping his weapon tight, eyes scanning the dark ridgeline. "I don't see movement," he shouted. "Exactly," Nancy said, stepping beside him, calm even as chaos brewed. "They're using the terrain. Watch the angles." A second later, a flash. Small, deliberate. A decoy. Nancy didn't flinch. She fired once. A thud followed. "Target down," she said, then turned to Cole. "Now you see what real patience looks like." He nodded, adrenaline surging. "Ma'am, how many do you think?" She looked out at the night. Too many for this to be random. Minutes stretched like hours. When the gunfire finally stopped, they found 3 bodies near the fence. Gear stripped, faces covered, but one patch remained on a torn shoulder strap. Nancy picked it up. It was black cloth embroidered with a faded dagger and a half skull, her tattoo. Briggs joined her, breathing heavy. "What is that?" She stared at it, her face pale. "It's from the REAPER unit, my team. But this design, it's been altered. Half skull means betrayal." Briggs frowned. "You're saying one of your old teammates is alive," she finished, voice sharp, "and he's coming for me?" The next morning, the base was quiet again. Too quiet. Nancy sat alone in the war room, staring at the black patch laid across the table. Cole entered, holding a report. "Ma'am, they found tracks heading north. Whoever they were, they knew this terrain." Nancy nodded slowly. "Then they're not finished." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Tell the men to rest. Tonight we hunt." He nodded, hesitated, then said, "Ma'am, why are you doing this? You don't owe us anything." She gave a small smile, faint but real. You're wrong, kid. I owe every new recruit who thinks war is a game. Someone's got to teach you what it really costs. Cole nodded, jaw tight, respect replacing guilt. As he left, Nancy's eyes returned to the patch. She traced the threads with her gloved finger, whispering, "If you think you can outlive the Reaper, try." Outside, the wind howled through the desert fences, carrying the scent of rain and gunpowder. The kind of night that felt like it was waiting for ghosts to come home. If you think we should never judge a book by its cover, comment "never judge," because sometimes the one you underestimate is the one fate sends to save you from the storm. Night had fallen over the base again, darker than before. The power lines hummed under low voltage. Even the floodlights seemed nervous. Every Marine on duty felt it, the kind of quiet that doesn't come from peace, but from something holding its breath. Nancy Hale stood on the tarmac, the glow of the perimeter lights reflecting faintly off her silver-white hair. Her eyes were fixed on the desert horizon, where the dunes met the void. Her rifle hung low at her side, safety off. "Convoy reports cleared, ma'am," Cole said, jogging up beside her, trying to sound steady. "No movement for the last 2 hours." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she crouched down and drew a small circle in the dirt with her finger. The Reaper insignia, the skull and dagger. "They're watching," she said finally. "That's what I would do. Watch. Wait. Make us think we're safe." Cole swallowed hard. "You think it's one of your old team, don't you?" She looked up, eyes glinting like cold metal. "No, I know it is." The command tent was half lit, maps fluttering under the ceiling fan. General Briggs leaned over the main table, his jaw tight. "Intel just came through," he said as Nancy entered. "Thermal scans from the northern ridge. 3 heat signatures. All stationary. Could be a recon team." She looked at the map, tracing the ridge with her finger. "They're not recon. That's a triangle formation. Reaper 3 protocol. My protocol." Briggs frowned. "You're telling me someone's using your old playbook to stalk us?" Nancy's voice was steady but low. "No, General, he's not stalking us. He's calling me out." She turned for the door. "Commander," Briggs called, "you step out there without backup, and you're breaking protocol." She stopped at the threshold, half lit by the tent light. "Protocol's what got them killed, sir. This time I finish it my way." Minutes later, she was outside the wire. The desert stretched infinite, wind pushing grains of sand like whispering ghosts. The moon was half-veiled, painting the dunes in pale silver. Nancy moved like a shadow, every step deliberate, low, silent. Her M4 hung across her chest. Her sidearm sat loose in its holster. When she reached the ridge, she saw them. 3 silhouettes crouched near a cluster of rocks. They weren't Marines. Too disciplined. Too still. She raised her rifle, scanning through the scope, until one of them turned his head just slightly toward her, as if he knew she was there. Her finger froze on the trigger. That face. Those eyes. "Calder," she whispered. He'd been her second in command in Operation 37. He'd gone missing the night the team was ambushed. Declared KIA. She'd even written his name in the after-action report herself. Now he was here, alive, armed, and wearing the Reaper insignia, only twisted. Half skull. Betrayal. Nancy stood slowly, stepping out from cover. The other 2 figures aimed instantly, but Calder raised a hand. "Stand down," he ordered. His voice was gravel now. Older, harder. He took a slow step forward. "You shouldn't have come, Hale." She kept her weapon raised. "You shouldn't have lived." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "You always had a sharp tongue. Thought death would have dulled it." "I buried you," she said quietly, "or what was left of you." He chuckled, low and bitter. "Yeah, you buried what they told you to bury. The story, not the truth." "Then tell me," she said. "Why?" He took another step closer. "Because they lied to us. Operation 37 wasn't an extraction. It was a cover-up. We weren't there to stop chemical payloads. We were there to erase the evidence of their weapon tests. Our own command signed it." Nancy's grip tightened. "You think that excuses the ambush you led?" "I didn't lead it," he said sharply. "I survived it. You think they left you alive because you were lucky? No. You were chosen. You were their face, the perfect survivor for the official story." Nancy shook her head. No, I saw them die. I felt it. He pointed at her chest, at the faint outline of the skull and dagger tattoo beneath her shirt. You wear that ink like pride, but it's their brand. You think it means honor? It means ownership. She aimed the rifle at his heart. If I believed that, I'd have stopped wearing it long ago. Calder took one step closer. Then you're still serving ghosts, Nancy. And ghosts don't care who they haunt. A flicker of movement. One of his men twitched. A flash of light. The first shot cracked through the night. Nancy dropped to one knee, returned fire. Controlled. Precise. 2 rounds, 2 hits. The air filled with dust and echoes. When the smoke cleared, only Calder was standing. He looked at her, chest rising slow. Still perfect, he said softly. Still the Reaper. She fired again, this time at the sand by his feet. You're not walking out of here, Calder. Neither are you, he said, and pressed a small detonator clipped to his belt. The ridge exploded in flame. When Nancy woke, everything was ringing. Her vision swam. The air reeked of smoke and metal. She was half buried in sand, blood trailing from her temple. She dragged herself up. The ridge was a crater. Calder's body was nowhere in sight, only the twisted fragment of the detonator blinking faintly in the dirt. Behind her, headlights approached. Trucks, Marines, shouting voices. Cole was the first to reach her, sliding down the slope. Commander, he shouted. We thought... I'm fine, she said hoarsely, though her hands trembled. He knelt beside her. Where's the enemy? She looked around at the wreckage. Gone. For now. Cole stared at her tattoo, now streaked with dirt and blood. Was it him? She nodded once. It was him, but not the way I remembered. He's fighting something bigger now. Cole frowned. What could be bigger than the Reapers? Nancy stared into the dark horizon. The truth they buried under us. By morning, the base was sealed off. Command swarmed with intelligence officers. Briggs stormed into the infirmary where Nancy sat, her arm bandaged, her shirt torn open, just enough for the ink to show. You disobeyed orders, he barked. You went off base, engaged without authorization, and detonated half a ridge. Nancy looked up slowly. And in return, I saved your base from being wiped clean off the map. Briggs slammed a folder down beside her. You don't understand, Commander. They're coming after you. Whatever you dug up tonight, they don't want it to see daylight. Nancy smiled faintly, tired. Then I guess it's already morning, sir. He stared at her for a long moment. Then his voice softened. You're not just a soldier, Hale. You're a reminder that the ones we forget are the ones holding the line. She stood slowly. I didn't survive 37 missions to start running now. Briggs exhaled. You're being reassigned. Off-grid, new clearance, codename stays. Nancy nodded, already knowing. Reaper? He shook his head. Black Reaper. That evening she walked to the southern gate one last time. The same recruits who had once mocked her now stood at attention. Cole waited near the checkpoint, trying not to look emotional. They told me you're leaving, he said quietly. Not leaving, she said, adjusting her gloves. Just changing stations. He hesitated. If it means anything, ma'am, I was wrong about you. She looked at him, one brow raised. About me? About everything, he said. About strength, respect, what real soldiers look like. She smiled, faint, tired, genuine. Good. That means the next time someone walks in here wearing something you don't understand, you'll think twice before laughing. He nodded, eyes glinting. Yes, ma'am. She turned to leave, the desert wind lifting her silver hair. Then she stopped, glanced back over her shoulder. Cole? Yes, ma'am. If you ever see a skull and dagger again, duck. He laughed nervously, but she didn't smile this time. Her expression was far away, somewhere between memory and mission. The truck door closed. The convoy rolled out, dust rising behind them like ghosts waking up. Weeks later, the base received a sealed package. Inside was a single photo. Nancy Hale standing on a rooftop somewhere in Eastern Europe. Silver hair blowing in the night wind, A new patch on her shoulder. Task Force Reaper, reborn. No note, no signature. Just a quote written across the back of the photo. The dead don't salute, but they still protect. If this story moved you, please subscribe, because behind every uniform, every scar, and every silence, there's someone who still stands watch for the ones who forgot how. Don't just scroll past heroes like Nancy Hale. Subscribe, share her story, and comment, never judge, because the world still needs reminders that courage doesn't always wear rank. Sometimes it just wears scars.